Hello and welcome to the Metapod podcast, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. It's another week, another episode. I can't remember if this is 225 or 226, but it's it's something in the
It's
220s.
big number.
You
It
know what?
it big
When you
number.
do it, when you do it as long as we have, we're probably the second longest Pokemon TCG podcast right now that's still going. Us and
Yes.
Tag Team,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
believe.
Tag team would be like that's the OG, but
Yeah.
we're now of
We're
that
we
ilk.
started we started very soon after they started, I remember, but my point is, when you get this long, you stop really thinking about the number. It's
Yeah.
not as big of a deal, to you until you hit the milestone. So until we hit number 500, I will not know what episode it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
Sean, how's your week?
I'm good. I'm good, Jake. I just it was just a normal week. I
Yeah.
actually at one of my locals, the place that we're going to be doing the midnight pre-release. I will put the details in the Discord for when this. By the time this episode comes out, they'll be there, so you can have those deets. But at that locals, we had a few people who'd never done a pre-release before, and so we were like, we all got together and we're like, hey, let's all buy. The store had like Stellar Crown pre-release kits still. And I
Mhm.
was like, yo, let's all just like six of us buy pre-release kits and we'll run a little pre-release right now. And it was great because it was like good for teaching people pre-release format. But it was also, I think it's good for the store because like I find stores
You
are
bought
often
product,
right.
yeah.
Well, stores are often saddled with like extra pre-release kits, and those are particularly hard to sell for the first like I would say year or two.
Yeah, well, once the set officially releases, then it becomes hard to
Yeah.
sell, I feel like, a lot of times.
Yeah, like after and look, if you hold it for long enough, then it becomes like, sealed product and it's super whatever. But, stores are not in the business of holding product for years on end. So, yeah, it was
Mhm.
cool. What about you,
I
Jake?
will say I haven't really done much, like, card game stuff, I feel like, in the last week, been too busy with work and life and stuff like that, but, just casually being about it. I have been excited. We won't talk too much about Vancouver regionals that
Mm.
have been happening, but I have been watching that. If you've seen in our official Metapod Discord server, that now after 2 years or whatever, you can now, give reactions to messages and stuff. In the official Metapod Discord server that you can join in the link in the description below or the show notes, whichever you prefer. But yeah, just been watching it. It's been really, really cool. It's
Yeah.
not over yet at the time that we're recording this because we have to record this on Sunday night. But right now, Lee Bui is in top four with Roaring Moon EX. There's four different decks in top four. It's Roaring Moon,
Goldango.
Goldango, Miraidon, because Caleb Rogerson's playing Miraidon,
Wait, is it
and I can't.
is it Goldango or did Dragapult in the I don't know.
No, so Andrew Hedrick is the fourth person. He's playing Dragapult.
You're right. Yeah.
And then Lucas Zing is playing Goldango, Caleb Rogerson's playing Miraidon, and Lee Bui is playing Roaring Moon. And I think Lee Bui is about to win game one of the set. So really, really cool. Anyways, that's going on right now. We're about to hit rotation, so we're not really too worried about it, but congratulations in the future to whatever happens. But the pre-release for Journey Together, if you do not know, is happening starting this weekend from the 15th to the 23rd. The main set will release on the 28th, the next Pokemon set. So just want to make sure that you guys know that. And it is the all important set review today,
Mhm.
Sean. We're going to be going over the set. But is this the first time that we've been like the week of pre-release and we don't know the 4 pre-release cards? Okay, just want to touch on this real quick actually because this did actually release shortly after we put out the episode. Like I'm talking about the next morning after we recorded. This came out. The pre-release promos for the set. The pre-release promos are going to be En's Darmanitan, Iono's Kilowattrel, Lily's Rabombi, and also Hop's Snorlax. So we kind of talked about a little bit how like, oh, there's trainers. Do you think they'll stick it to trainers Pokemon? completely, I think we completely forgot that Lillie has some Pokemon in this set. I think if my memory is correct, we got N, Iono, and Hop as different trainers that are partners in this set. We forgot Lillie. So really, really like this. Sean likes it too in terms of the selection of Pokemon that they did on this for the promos. Think it's going to be really, really cool. Really interested to see it. And yeah, just wanted to give that guys to you. I won't talk about the cards too much and like, what they do, etc., because this is the set review video. So we're going to talk about all these cards in this set. So just tune into those moments as well. Anyways, back to the regularly scheduled stuff. When was the last time that we didn't know the pre-release cards this late?
I can't remember a time that it was like the week that it came out that we didn't know. There was some
Yeah.
set within the last year or so that I remember being like weirdly late, but
Hmm.
for whatever reason, they've not told people. I'm not exactly sure why though.
I
It's
mean, it doesn't matter to me,
no.
but I just thought it was really interesting because I think it was somebody in the Discord was like, "What are the pre-release promos?" And I was like, "I actually have no idea."
Yeah. I mean, I think there is some thoughts and guesses like Pokemon usually likes to feature different themes and mechanics. So like you could see two owners Pokemon getting the pre-release treatment and then two normal Pokemon, but
Hmm.
I could also see all four of the owners that are featured in this set, or I think there's
Yeah.
four, right? There might be more, but I think there's four.
There's N, there's Iono.
Hop
Oh yeah, Hop is in there. Who's the fourth
and
one? Because I think Ethan is the next set.
so it might just be three. There might be
Yeah, it
one
might
that we're
only be
missing, but
three.
yeah.
Hmm.
Point being, like, that'll be my guess is it's some combination of those. So, um, yeah. But Jake, we do have one little piece of news before we get into the set review, which I
Hmm.
think is interesting to touch on, and that is we talked last week about mega evolutions. We had some thoughts and opinions. A variety of different people had different opinions on those opinions. But point being, mega evolutions are coming, and there was speculation as to like what this means for the TCG. And we also talked about what is the set after, like what is the TCG after Scarlet and Violet era. And the new trademark, Mega, um, is was filed in a similar manner as their set themes. So
Hmm.
there's large speculation that we will have some block of cards that are in the Mega theme. So it will
Yeah.
replace Scarlet and Violet.
It'll be interesting. I don't mind it. Especially because a new gimmick is given, like just about every year, and with like not the next generation of games with Gen 10 being able to piggyback off that because I believe now they've like broken the usual system
Yeah.
for like game releases and their tendencies and quote unquote advancing the Pokemon series in terms of generations and stuff. So this is just the new solution to that. So I don't mind it, It's still the EX era. It is megas, which is then I mean it's basically the VMAXs. Um
Yeah.
it is what it is.
I mean, I think so. What's interesting is this mirrors something that they did a long time ago. They had in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, after the Diamond
Mhm.
and Pearl era, they did four sets, I believe, of Heart Gold, Soul Silver, maybe something like that. But it
Yeah.
was like a small window. And I think that this probably is what this is going to be. Like maybe we'll get a year's worth of sets. So maybe 4 or 5 sets that are in this theme. And then with the release of the 10th generation game, maybe next year, alongside 30th anniversary, like next year is going to be a big year for Pokemon.
That's
So,
crazy. My wallet's not ready.
yeah. So like it may be that they're like doing like a little mini group for this as they lead into the big 10th generation 30th year celebration. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, just some interesting news out there for anybody who is curious. But Jake, let's get into this set review.
Journey Together, very, very good. But before we talk any super important Pokemon, just want to give a quick shout out. There is a new Metapod coming in this set, little Metapod. It's got a 3 retreat cost. Wait,
Sure.
when has Metapod ever had a 3 retreat cost and I've just never noticed?
I'm looking at the
Uh
base set one on my wall, and it has a 2 retreat cost, but 3
what's the
seems
one on
crazy.
Oh, yeah, 2 is on oh, yeah, we're probably looking at the same card because
Mm.
we both own it. But anyways, this Metapod can be annoying with 90 HP, level ballable if you're playing Expanded or GLC, I guess. With 1 Grass Energy, Harden during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks if that damage is 60 or less. Actually, kind of like a cool attack, I feel like.
I mean, I don't it's only if the damage is 60 or less. If they hit for more damage than 60, you do nothing.
Yeah, but, like, it feels unique. I mean, have
It
we
is
ever
unique. That's
seen,
true.
yeah, have we ever? Because usually I feel like it's one of those, attacks that are like flip a coin. If it's heads, prevent all damage,
It's true.
where this one is, like, different. I don't know. I'm gonna be adventuring into getting every single Metapod card here soon, this one being illustrated by Okubo. So if you got the full Metapod binder, let us know.
I will say, this could be if it's one of like if Butterfree, let's say, is one of the promos, which I'd be
Mhm.
surprised if it is, but if it is, I can see this being a pre-release all-star, the Metapod, because
It's probably a whole pre-release kit.
right,
To be
so
honest. Yeah.
that's the thought, right? Which is just like you start with Caterpie, you go into Metapod. A lot of early games, the opponent can't do that much damage, right? Like 60 is like not a lot for standard, but for like pre-release early in the game, it's like, pretty normal. So it basically says, "Hey, my Butterfree is going to be completely undamaged when I'm ready to go into it." And so that's the one world where I see this card, like the design of it making sense.
Yeah. I mean, the Butterfree is really cool because you flip 4 coins and you do 60 damage for each heads. And if you get 2 or more heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. So pre-release format, look out.
Yeah. So yeah, if you do pull that in pre-release, let us know. Let us know how Metapod performs in your pre-release if it's like an absolute goat. But yeah, definitely a good shout there. And also, please, Pokemon Company, make an illustration rare version of the Butterfree line so that we can have a max rarity Metapod.
I just want a Metapod. That's it. I don't care about Butterfree. I don't care about Caterpie. I just need the Metapod and put it in a set where there are a bunch of other banger illustration cards. So then the price is not bad for the Metapod because everybody's paying attention to the other Pokemon. I don't ask for much, but that's one of the things that I ask for.
Moving on through the other grass Pokemon, though, there's a couple of like little ones that I think are worth mentioning. There is a Lilligant here. It's a stage 110 HP grass. That the main reason I'm bringing this up is its ability, Sunny Day. Your grass and fire Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active. Importantly, this does not say this ability does not stack.
Mhm.
So for each Lilligant that you have in play, it will do 20 more damage. So in theory, 80 more damage for grass and or fire types. If those become particularly relevant in the future, might be something.
Another reason why I wish Pokemon printed Radiant Ditto, because it just would be so cool to have, like, a Radiant Ditto in the deck and just this tech choice, right? You need 20 more damage.
Yeah.
Boom. You just go ahead and evolve it into Lilligant and your grass and fire Pokemon. Do some extra damage. But Maractus, if you do not know, has an ability. The attack is subpar at best, but 110 HP grass type Pokemon, bursting needle ability. If this Pokemon out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, put 6 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So you gotta have this thing in the active, and it has to be knocked out by damage specifically, not poison, like the Terapagos poison box deck.
Mhm.
usually does, but the first attack for one colorless 20 damage during your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So maybe you can try to trap it and force them to put 6 damage counters on themselves, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, we've seen similar effects on Pokemon, but I think that oftentimes this ability has been attached to two prize Pokemon in the recent
Mhm.
sets, which I think makes this ability kind of a non-starter because like your opponent's happy to have 6 damage counters usually if they're taking two prizes. But for one prize, like, it's an interesting card, right? Like I think it fights for space index with weirdly with Budu because
I don't know about that.
well, no, because you think about it, right? Like, I don't know if you're building an entire Maractus deck, but you might leave something in the active in order to like fix some math, force your opponent to have, some gusting effect. Um, but what's better, putting this in the active and trying to force that and putting 6 damage counters on, or just hitting for 10 with Budu and saying you can't use items, and then having the same needing a gust effect to get around it.
Hitting for 10 and saying you can't use items.
So that's my point. I don't know. I look. This is probably not even a deck, but like it's interesting. But like I think it fights for space with Budu, which is kind of unfortunate.
We give you the silly stuff here on the
Yeah.
Metapod podcast because who else is going to? Anyways, speaking of silly, there's a stage 1 Amoonguss EX in here, 260 HP grass type Pokemon. It's bad. You don't really need anything, but if Amoonguss is your favorite Pokemon, maybe you're a VGC nut, right? One grass energy, 30 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. Hopefully, they don't hit or flip heads and wake up. And then for a grass colorless, Mushroom Swing, 100 plus damage. You flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 80 more damage. So maybe if you're hitting a Charizard for 360, that's cool. But you could also hit tails and do only 200 damage to a Charizard. So
Yep.
gonna need some Lilligans for that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is. I look up and I'm like, yep. This feels like one of those starter deck cards, and
Yep.
indeed it is. So,
It is from EX Starter Decks Generations.
um, I want to move on to this Acelgor. So this Excelgor, stage one grass, single prizer for a grass and a colorless, ephemeral poison. You do 70. Your opponent's active is now confused and poisoned, and you switch this Pokemon with one of your bench. So it's a hit and run that does 70 and poison plus some confusion. I don't know. This is like hit and run is an interesting style. I think the question is, what are you running into? Um, you know,
Cornerstone Ogre
right. Actually, that's like, we have things like Latias in the format so that the Ogerpon can retreat every turn. Um, so, that might be an interesting strategy if you're looking for a cool, like, hit and run deck. And then the poison and confusion it's funny. It's like just annoying enough to where I don't think many decks are going to have like a lot of answers for it.
Mhm.
And you'll have turns where your opponent is like, screw it, I can't be bothered with retreating. So I'm just going to attack, and then their attack's going to miss. And that, it's going to feel great.
You don't even have to retreat into Cornerstone Ogerpon, right? You can retreat into the Pecharunt, and
Yeah.
now your poison from the ephemeral poison attack is now doing 5 damage counters, and
Six.
you can stack it. Or is it
It's
6?
it's five
Oh, is it
more.
5 more? Oh, 5
Yeah.
more. Even better, you're doing 130 now, and you've got your opponent confused. Hopefully, they have a switch out.
Yeah. No, I love that. So I think as a cool, if you really want to build a cool either, stall-ish, not stall really, but like hit and run deck or a single prize deck, this one could be a fun one to bring to locals.
Mhm.
Jake, what's the next one that's on your list?
There's a new Meowscarada line in here. This Meowscarada Stage 2 160 HP Pokemon has the ability Showtime. Once during your turn, you may use this ability if this Pokemon is on the bench. Switch it with your active Pokemon, right? So similar to Pecharunt EX, you're able to manipulate what Pokemon is in your active spot. And then with a 2 colorless attack for 90 plus damage, if your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon EX, this attack does 90 more damage. So for 2 energies, you can do 180 damage on EX Pokemon. EX Pokemon are so popular right now in the game. More than likely, you're going to be hitting one of those from your active. So, really interesting stage 2 Pokemon. I feel like like many of the other stage 2 like one prize Pokemon, there's just one thing that makes it from I mean, it's underwhelming, a
Yeah.
little bit. There's one thing that makes it really, really cool, but could be really interesting if you're running a grass type of deck, right? Maybe have some energy acceleration and being able to, again, do 180 for 2 colorless energies. Not bad.
Yeah. I mean, if you're running the regular Meowscarada EX,
Oh, yeah.
I know some people like that, the placing damage counter. So it's a fun little like bonus toy that you get where it can get you out of a, somebody trying to trap something in the active. It's a single prizer that can, take out something like a Squawkabilly. So it seems kind of fun. Um, the next one on my list, Jake, is this Magmortar. I don't know if the card itself is like particularly great. It's a stage 130 HP fire type Pokemon. Its ability, though, is the thing that is interesting. Magma Surge. During Pokemon Checkup, put 3 more damage counters on your opponent's burned Pokemon. So we've seen, like, starting with Shrouded Fable, I believe, we had a lot of support come out for Poison. And this set has some support coming out for, like, burning your opponent's Pokemon and adding to that damage. So I'm not sure if burn becomes particularly relevant with this Magmortar, but you never know, man. Like it's little things like this where if you have the right attacker that may already be doing burn incidentally, this type of like extra damage is like, oh, I just basically get a choice belt if I play this as a 1/1 line in my deck. And maybe it fixes the math.
2 cool things about this Magmortar. One, doesn't have to be in the active,
Yep.
right? Like we said with Petrarunt, being on the bench. But also, if you're playing the dangerous laser ace spec, right, that burns and confuses your opponent's Pokemon. I had to pull out my binder and look it up for any of you that watched the video version of the podcast. That's what I was doing. But that combos pretty well with Magmortar. So who knows? Maybe usually you want something else with your Magmortar deck to be able to get going, but just know that option's out there for you. But overall, probably a card you're not going to see.
Yeah. What's next on your list, Jake?
I will say a lot of people were wondering if we were going to get this next card in the set. And according to justinbasil.com, looks like we are in here. Blaziken EX, right? Blaziken EX, stage 2 fire type Pokemon 320 with the ability Overflowing Spirit. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic fighting energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So, this ability stacks. If you have multiple Blaziken, you can do multiple Overflowing Spirits, attaching multiple basic energy cards to your Pokemon in any way. And Blaziken EX's ability is also nothing to slouch at for fire and colorless. So, 2 energies, very important when you're talking about that Overflowing Spirit ability. You could do 200 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack, which blah, blah, blah. We say this every time. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But really, really cool to be able on a single turn, right? We're not even talking about Magma Basin, being able to Overflowing Spirit and also do an attachment from hand to be able to get this Blaziken EX going and rocking for 200.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun ability. I keep seeing like they really are pushing stage 2s. Like there's some
Mm.
really interesting abilities or attacks. And I feel like there will be some Tatsugiri EX deck. You know what I mean? That is
I
actually
love Tatsugiri EX.
right. Like someone is going to break that card wide open and they're going to be like, let's throw a Blaziken EX. Let's throw, just 2 or 3 other stage 2s out there that just like should never have been put together in the same deck. Um, but look, maybe it's bad, but almost certainly it is. I just, I
It's not
hope one can dream.
it's not going to be the most all important card in a tournament run that you are going to see. But in terms of some of the more unique decks that we talk about viability and stuff like that, this one is up there. One that you can, build, take to your locals, have a lot of fun, win some games and stuff like that. Probably never going to win a regional, but you're going to be able to have fun and excel with. So one of my favorites, I'm a big Blaziken fan too, being a what I would say Gen 3 guy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jake, we have finally come to the first set of owners Pokemon here. We
Yeah,
have
crazy it took this long.
Oh yeah, yeah. We have Ends Darumaka and Ends Darmanitan. Fire type Pokemon. But yeah, the first ones we come across, let's see if they're any good. Ends Darmanitan, stage 1, 140 HP, fire type. The first attack is Backdraft 30 times. It does 30 damage for each energy card in your opponent's discard pile, which
Mhm.
I'm like, that's kind of interesting, right? We're seeing at Vancouver Regional, and we're hearing from other people that Goldengo might be a good deck. So not only are you hitting Goldengo for weakness, but the attack is like tailor made to like hit Goldengo. And I will also say, importantly, the attack cost on that first one is colorless. So you can run this with other ends Pokemon that may want different energy types or just other Pokemon in general. Yeah, I just wanted to point that one out. But second attack here for 2 fire and a colorless. Darmani Cannon, 90 damage. Discard all energy. It does 90 to one of your opponent's bench. Cool little bench snipe. We are
Mhm.
losing Manaphy, so it will be relevant for at least one set until we get the next thing that was revealed. I can't remember which Shaman I think it was.
Is Shaman, yeah.
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 So, but Jake, what are your thoughts on this Darmanitan?
I really like this Darmanitan. If you know about the Ends box deck, Ends Zoroark deck
Mhm.
that's coming, Darmanitan is one of the premier Pokemon that you utilize within this deck. One of the cool reasons too with that colorless attack that you were talking about, backdraft on there. There's going to be an item card that we talk about later that accelerates basic energies to Ends Pokemon. So it's going to be really easy to be able, if you want to attack with this in itself, to do that weakness damage that you were talking about, or something very, very good in that essence. The one thing that I will say though, and then I see people trip up with, whether that's the Champions League or just different live streams or videos and stuff like that. Ends Darumaka, right? That evolves into Ends Darmanitan. Ends Darumaka is an 80 HP Pokemon, so it's just out
Yikes.
of Buddy Buddy Poffin range. So gonna have to be able to utilize Nest Ball or Trolley or some other way to get basic Pokemon on the field. And that's kind of one of the things that limits this deck in a sense. It's like it's not the easiest way to get your Darmanitans on the field, but we'll talk later. The Zoruas are 70 HP, so it kind of balances out in a
Okay.
sense.
That is interesting. They chose to make it 80, which like yeah, it's like, oh, huh, huh. So it's doubly hard to get this online turn 1.
I think
Interesting.
it's one of those things that you would. I guess it's spoiler that I said that
It's good. It's good.
Enzarua is 70 HP. I think it's good to choose either one or the other of Enzarua or Enzdarumaka to be 70 to 80, right? You have
Mhm.
to choose one or the other, like which one's going to be which. And I do agree that Zorua is probably the lighter Pokemon in a sense, Darumaka being a little bit more bulkier
Yeah,
than
literally
Zorua. So,
in the
yeah,
lore.
in the lore. So it kind of makes sense. And I do like that. It kind of power checks it a little bit, right?
Yeah. Jake, what's the next card on your list?
There are 2 EX Pokemon, one from Starter Deck Generations and one from Battle Partners. I'll just read them both off, and you choose which one you think is from the starter deck, because one is bad and one is not. The first one I'm going to talk about is Volcanion EX. Has the ability Scorching Steam. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your active spot, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon bird. Then for Fire, Colorless Heat Cyclone, you do 160 damage. Move an energy from this Pokemon to one of your benched Pokemon. It is a basic 220 HP EX, 3 retreat cost, weak to water. And then Reshiram over here, also 220 HP, weak to water, but it's got a 2 retreat cost. It also, or I guess not also, it has 2 attacks, does not have an ability. The first attack for 1 fire energy is Fire Wing, 40 damage. And then for Fire Colorless, Scorching Fire for 200 damage. You discard an energy from the Pokemon. So drum roll, please. Yeah, put your guesses in which one you think is the starter deck one and which one you think is the main set one. We'll give
Oy.
you like, I don't know, 3,
Half a second.
2, 1. Yeah. Reshiram EX is the starter deck Pokemon. So forget everything I said about that. Volcanion EX, right? Being able to make your opponent's active Pokemon burn can synergize well alongside the Magmortar, right? If you're able to get that going up
Yep.
and out, you'll be able to do extra burn damage on your opponent's active Pokemon. And then the Heat Cyclone, if you get that off, right? Blaziken can accelerate energies onto this Pokemon to be able to continuously attack with. You're going to be able to do 160 and then move an energy to set up another Pokemon on the bench, continuously cycling attackers.
Yep.
Not great. Neither of them are super incredible, but Volcanion definitely better.
Yeah, I will say I do like this as if you're planning to run Charizard, if you really love Charizard and you're like, hey, is there anything from the new set that I should think about? I think Volcanion is actually totally viable. I think about like were playing it with Entei, people were playing it with what's the ancient type? Gouging Fire.
Yeah, Gouging Fire.
And like it does less damage than Gouging Fire, but the benefit of Volcanion is once you accelerate those energy to this Volcanion, when you attack, you can put the energy back onto the Charizard. So it's not like Charizard likes to run as few energy as possible, and the commitment on this Pokemon is far less challenging, I would say. And you can knock out, some small things. If you're just doing like 160 plus 2 burn, that's 180. You're knocking out Mew, you're knocking out Squawkabilly, right? Like if you just want to go in there with something that might be annoying for your opponent to knock out while get your Charizards ready. I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. I think it's a little more useful than it may seem on the surface.
Mhm.
But Jake, now moving into the water Pokemon here. I'm scrolling down. The first sort of groups are not particularly great. Honestly, even the Ludicolo, I don't know, man. As a stage 2,
What? The Ludicolo is so cool.
I mean, it's a cool art, but the card itself,
Yeah, Jerky and incredible art.
oh yeah. I will say though, the card itself, the ability is the only thing that matters. Each of your Pokemon in play gets plus 40 HP. The effect doesn't stack, which is totally valid. That would be wild if you had 4 of these out.
That'd be crazy, like, the last Ludicolo that, like, when it evolved, it gave, like, plus 100 damage or something, like, do you remember that guy?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People played that with Suicune. Yeah.
Yeah, funny deck.
But like, so it's interesting. I don't know how much 40 HP matters, especially on a Pokemon that's a stage 2. So it's like, I don't
But
know
it's
about
40
this.
HP all the time, and it's each Pokemon in play, so think about if you're playing against a Dragapult,
That's
right?
true.
Dragapult loves spreading those damage counters. Dusknoir loves to be annoying with those damage counters. Think about giving your Pokemon 40 HP everywhere, man. That's sick. That's so cool. I love this Ludicolo. It's probably not that good, but I love him.
Yeah. You know what I think would be wild, Jake? Imagine if you play this Ludicolo and everything is plus 40 HP and Dragapult's like, "Oh, I'm struggling so much." And then they somehow find a way to turn this ability off. And you
Oh,
just
yeah, that's
lose.
tough.
That
That's
would
tough.
be gross. Canceling Cologne is rotating, but like there's other ways.
You could do if you had
It's
a
Klefki
Fluttermane,
or
right?
Flutterman. Yeah, yeah.
You get a Fluttermane in the active and you boss up the Ludicolo, and with all the damage counters stacked everywhere, you just take like 10 prizes.
Oh my god, that's so gross. Anyways, we're
That
just,
would be crazy.
But Jake, there is one Pokemon I see on here that I feel like could be something. What are your thoughts on this Wailord?
This is my good guy potentially for GLC. I'm not 100% sure, but I think his best moment is probably GLC. This 240 HP big dog right here. Excellent art by Takeshi Nakamura, by the way. Has a 4 colorless attack called Hydro Pump, 10 plus damage. This attack does 50 more damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So one key thing, it is not like basic water energy, right? So if you
Hmm?
have special energy, like what is it?
Wash
Reversible
energy?
energy?
Or
I
yeah,
mean wash
reversal energy.
energy,
Yeah,
yeah.
it counts for water. Yeah.
Reversal energy, that's 3 water energies right there. We've got Bax Caliber going on right now that could add in a ton of damage. And if you have 4 energies to fulfill this cost on the Wailord, and they're all water energies in some form of another, you're already doing 210 damage. So I think this Wailord's really cool. I think it's neat, especially in my GLC deck. It's probably not great in standard, but if you like having a little bit of fun with the Wailord, this guy's not bad, probably for standard, I feel like.
I think this card. I'm gonna go out there. I think this card is better in standard than we're giving it credit for, Jake.
Oh,
I
really?
I'll say this: Wailmer is 130 HP. That's beefy. You don't have to worry. Dragapult ain't got nothing on this Wailmer. Okay, you're fine. I will also say Wailord 240 HP on a single prize Pokemon, and there is a tool that nobody ever uses, and it's really good called Rigid Band. And it only
I
works
don't
on
even know what it does.
it works on stage 1 Pokemon specifically. And it says this Pokemon takes 40 less damage from attacks. So,
Oh, okay.
you basically if you play it with this, which, I might recommend, you have a 280 HP single prize Pokemon that if you're playing it with Baxcalibur, like the Chen Pao engine, you can really get this boy up there every single turn. Like, I don't know. This is dope.
Rigid Band in the Scarlet Violet 151 Mew set is in the G block, so it does survive rotation. It's also 30 less
Oh, is it
damage.
30? Okay, so
Yeah,
270.
it's
270.
still a respectable number. I see where
Yeah.
you're going with this, right?
Yeah.
I see it. You can also put on the like hero's cape for your A spec of choice, right? Make him, I think it's 340
Yeah.
HP at one point. Like that's a pretty beefy guy,
Yeah.
especially for a one prizer. So if you're wondering what I'm playing when this set releases, it's going to be Baxcalibur Wailord.
Yeah.
And nobody can stop me except for maybe good decks.
I will also say the IR, the illustration rare for this Wailord,
Oh my god,
absolutely
yeah.
slaps.
It's so good.
Like, I
You have
want
to
to
look
build the
it up
deck
if you.
just for that.
Yeah, I need at least one for my GLC option and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyways, we'll move on from the Wailord. Does the Reggie deck survive rotation?
I don't believe so. I think there are
I
I
do.
think the main Reggie that accelerates all the energy. I don't know. I don't think it rotates.
I was gonna
It
say there's a new
survives.
Regice that does 90 and then 10 damage everywhere on the bench Pokemon. It's probably not good. Probably doesn't replace the other one, but thought it was neat.
Yeah. um the Veluza EX is also bad. I don't
I think it's interesting.
okay, fair. One water energy, you do 30. A water colorless, you do 120. But if you discard your hand, you do 120 more.
Bibarel rotates, doesn't it?
It
It's
does.
finally time.
It is
It's
time.
finally time for Bibarel. Do we have anything that would, like, replace
Not
Bibarel in terms of I guess, like,
Mew.
what's that? What well, yes. What's the guy that I'm thinking of? He's Dunsparce.
Yeah, did Unsparce is not
Um,
bad. Mew's pretty good.
could do some
Really,
drawing with that.
yeah, those are not bad. I mean, look, 240 on a basic is like that's pretty good damage. But oh, just imagine doing this and then your opponent bosses up your way to draw out of that. Rip.
Terrible.
Uh, What's the next on your like little list here, Jake? Looking at the lightning type Pokemon.
On looking at the lightning type Pokemon, we'll talk about Iono's Pokemon in here. Iono has a Voltorb and Electrode. The Voltorb, absolutely gorgeous, by the way.
Yes.
Kazumasa Yazukuni. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's a 70 HP Iono's Voltorb. I won't talk about the tap attack. It doesn't really matter. But
Hold on.
Iono's
Well,
you
this
no,
attack
okay, maybe
this attack is
sure.
legit.
Hey, it's something. I mean, it's if you're in a bad spot, it might not be that bad. Okay, for 2 colorless energies, Chain Bolt, 20 plus damage. Attack does 20 more damage for each lightning energy attached to your Iono's Pokemon. So if you happen to have specifically Iono's Pokemon only on the field with energies, maybe you use a Magneton to blow it up and accelerate
Or
a bunch of
Iono's Belly
energies.
Bolt.
Iona's Belly Bolt, which we'll talk about here soon. I think it's later down this list, right? Couple different energy acceleration options. You could stack up a bit of damage, I will say, in order to do 200, though, you have to get 10 of them on the field, which is, or nine. Yes, you're right. Nine, which is a lot of energy.
It
So
is.
hopefully you're hitting for weakness if you're attacking with this.
Yeah, yeah. I will say, you're absolutely right that like it does take a lot of energy, but this is the kind of card that like if you're playing the Ionos deck and you are trying to like figure out how to be like a better player, these basics like this are I think what separates great players from like decent players of like realizing, oh, I can go in with a single prize attacker and take out this squawkabilly now or take out
Mhm.
whatever. Um so I don't know. I'm not saying the Ionos deck is like great, but yeah, it is a dope card. But Jake, what about the Electrode?
Reading the Electrode, I think it's better than the Electrode, actually. I
What?
take back what I was saying. Lightning, heart pounding bomb. This attack does 100 damage to itself. Flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is knocked out. Unless we were to get some sort of Pokemon that determined the next coin flip, there's no way that that's worth it,
I mean,
right?
if you're trading, here's what I'll say. If you're
You're
trading a
trading
single
only if you hit heads.
if you're trading a single prizer for a two prizer, like that, it's that risk, right? Like, okay, I could see
Okay.
somebody, but I think this is the Pokemon company looking ahead, saying we would also like to introduce three prize Pokemon. Now, would you flip a head? Would you flip a coin and see if you could just take three prizes?
Uh, Probably not. No, I'd rather play
Oh,
Roaring Moon. If I wanna
you know
do
what?
that, I just
Fair.
play Roaring Moon.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's valid. So, but I'm like, is it's interesting.
Mhm.
you know, this feels a lot like the Executor, the what's the Alolan Executor that we got.
Yeah, where you flip heads or tails, and it's like either a basic Pokemon in the active or a basic Pokemon on the bench.
Yeah. So,
I
but
feel that.
but there's a few more. There's another ends Pokemon, and then oh, actually no, we switched from Iono to N. My brain. So in the electric realm, we have an ends Joltik, which also has a double colorless attack. I think you can sense a theme here. For two colorless, it does 30. Before doing damage, you discard all Pokemon tool cards from your opponent's active Pokemon. If you discarded a tool this way, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So, kind of interesting.
I feel like that's really weird. Why would you have that specific wording in there? Maybe just to clarify, questions that people have, like, frequently asked questions?
I think it's if you don't discard a tool this way, like if you do the attack and there's no tool to discard, you don't paralyze them. That's what it's saying.
Oh, got it. Maybe
Um,
people were thinking in previous iterations that if you didn't discard the tool, you don't do any damage or,
right.
uh, paralysis. Okay, makes sense, makes sense. It's alright.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Like I think if you're
It's
playing the ends
cheeky.
package and you're playing against Dragapult, I think this is actually much better in that matchup specifically because you can Discard their Sparkling Crystal and paralyze the Dragapult for a turn.
Okay. You know what? I don't hate it. There's worse.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
I think it's a one of in an ends
It
deck if you're
it's
running it.
yeah, it's definitely a one of and it's cheeky.
Yeah.
But if
But
you want a free retreat Pokemon and you hate Raikou, I guess, I don't know.
it
There's a new
rotates.
free yeah, oh yeah, it does rotate. If you want a replacement for Raikou, we've got the Walmart version for you. Tapu Koko EX 200 HP lightning type Pokemon has free retreat, so he'll never get stuck in the active. You don't need a rescue board on him, although you're probably playing Latias EX, so does it really matter? Anyways, Lightning Colorless, Thunder connects 60 plus damage. This attack does 20 more damage for each of your benched Pokemon. So, like we've seen in previous iterations with the three legendary beasts, right? Suicune, Raikou, and Entei. Tapu Koko has a similar attack effect where you're stacking up damage as the bench space explodes. And bench space fills up, Sean, with that area zero underdepths and whatnot. So,
Yeah. I mean, look, I this is clearly like a Raikou V at home. Let's because it doesn't count your opponent. It literally maxes out at 220, which was Raikou's base before Area Zero maxed it out. So I it's interesting. Weirdly, Jake, I start to think that this card might be better in a Terapagos toolbox deck where you want, like, say in the future, you really need a lightning Pokemon to hit for weakness in that deck, and you're playing your glass trumpets and your energy switches. Cool. This is like a wonderful card that you can slot in, and if you can hit for weakness, you're going to deal double damage. Like, in my mind, if there's any hope for this card, that's where that hope lives.
mhm,
But yeah.
interesting. I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah. But Jake, the card that I mentioned earlier, I gave a preview, Iono's Belly Bolt. I was like, "Wow, this is a
I
yeah."
I will admit I didn't read this card before, but now that I've read this card, I'm more interested to know about this card.
You're like, tell me more."
Yeah.
So Iono's Belly Bolt is a stage 1 280 HP electric type. It has an ability. This is really the bread and butter. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic lightning energy from your hand to one of your Iono's Pokemon. So it's basically Shen Pao. It's basically Baxcalibur, but only for Iono's Pokemon specifically.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
so it's an energy accelerator, which is why I thought it was interesting. Because I don't know why, but before I thought it was a once per turn thing, but as often as you like, not gonna complain. Absolute cinema.
and it does have an attack for 3 lightning and a colorless, 230. This Pokemon can attack next turn. So I think this attack is very easy to get off the ground. I think you'll be perfectly fine doing that. But I do. It's an interesting deck because you kind of think to yourself, "Oh, I should run a lot of energy," but at the same time, you're in this weird thing of like, well, who really benefits from a lot of energy being on the board? And right now, it's really just that Voltorb. So it's weird. It's like it's a cool engine to get stuff online. I think the only other benefit you could see with this card is if you want to keep playing Iron Hands and
Mhm.
and we lose double turbo, I think playing Iono's Belly Bolt with energy switches and you still play like the electric generators and all that. I think that could be your kind of way to playing an Iron Hands deck in the future too.
If you want to, think of other reasons to be able to accelerate lightning energies whenever you want. Iono's Kilowattrel has a really interesting effect that kind of flows well with the Belly Bolt. Has the ability Flash Draw. If you discard a basic lightning energy from this Pokemon in order to use this ability, once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. So you could, at worst case scenario, attach an energy onto the Kilowattrel, and then go ahead and discard it in order to draw more cards, right? Up to 6 in hand. So if your energy is the last one in your hand, it's basically like a Squawkabilly.
Yeah. And again, with this deck, the nice thing with the Belly Bolt, oftentimes decks like this, like Revivroom, there's like a
Mhm.
baby Revivroom that has a very similar, I think maybe not the exact same, but very similar ability.
I think
The
it's draw until you have 5,
It
I
might be,
think.
yeah. And I think you have to discard it. But point
Yeah.
being, the problem when you run decks like that is sometimes you'll have a hand that's just like you have like 4 energy in hand. And you're like, well, I can't draw that much because my hand is just stuck of energy. And in this deck, you're like, that's fine. I'll just attach them all. So, aside from like Buddy Poffins and Nest Balls and like some extra supporters, um, aside from that situation, you're far less likely to have a dead hand that won't allow you to draw more cards.
Mhm.
So it is pretty cool. It's also like a fun benefit. Um,
I will say what I would say is one of the better cards of the set that people are much more excited about, Lillie's Clefairy EX. So this is our first Lillie's Pokemon of the set. Has the ability Fairy Zone. So the weakness of each of your opponent's end Pokemon is now psychic. Is it end
I
dragon?
think yeah, I think N is referring to dragon typing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't
I
usually
was
see
gonna
that.
say I'm just reading it from the words and not looking at the card, and so I was like, "N, what?" Anyways, Dragon type Pokemon are now weak to Psychic, right? So really, really cool, especially when you talk about some of the different Dragon Pokemon in the game, right? With Regidrago and stuff of the nature. Dragapult being a top tier deck heading into the upcoming format. So just having a one Lily's Clefairy EX on the field gives you such an advantage. Is definitely a support card that a lot of people will utilize, especially if you're playing a psychic based deck.
Yeah, and the other benefit too, the attack has nothing to slouch at. For one psychic and a colorless, you are doing it's called Full Moon Rondo, but it's literally the same attack as Raikou V.
Yeah.
Just
Which
no
is
different.
wasn't that attack called something Rondo?
Lightning
Like
Rondo.
wasn't Yeah, Lightning Rondo. Yeah, they
Yeah.
just kept the Rondo going.
Yeah. So the nice thing about this is again, like Area Zero is a card that will continue to exist. So while your normal like output may be like capped at 220, you could Area Zero your way into a much bigger attack. And so I would say that of all of the cards from the set that should make a big impact on the meta, this one card I think is going to be the most impactful. That's
Mhm.
my, gut feeling. But Jake, what next on the list caught your attention, if anything?
I would say that maybe Metagross has caught my attention a little
Okay.
bit. Metagross, a stage 2, so we're a little wary of it. 170 HP psychic Pokemon has a double psychic attack called Joint Beam, 130 damage. If there's a Beldum and a Metang on the bench, two different Pokemon, Beldum and Metang, you do 150 more damage. So for two psychic energies, if you got both of those guys down, which plenty of ways to be able to get them, right? We have plenty of Pokemon search, we have Pokemon recovery in like Night Stretcher and things like that. You'll be able for two energies to do 280 damage on your opponent's Pokemon.
Hmm.
Pretty interesting. I don't think it's really that great, right? Especially with all the disruption and stuff that we could have in the set with Unfair Stamp, with Iono and things like that. So, um, but definitely a cool one.
Yeah, it's cool, like single prized sort of archetype too. Um, Getting to another Ends Pokemon here, we have Ends Sigilith,
Mhm.
I believe. One psychic, you do 20 damage, and then for a psychic colorless victory symbol. If you use this attack when you have only one prize card remaining, you win the game. That's pretty
Okay.
dope.
Okay, Gardevoir deck.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a little. I will say that it's a little odd because it's a little bit like, well, if you only have one prize card remaining, I guess it's more fun to write it. You win the game,
Mhm.
but it's like more accurate to say just take your last prize card, or you know. But I guess it doesn't give you a prize card outside of it being the last. So I guess that's why they wrote it like that.
I will say there is an end Pokemon that might want to utilize a one of in this, and spoiler alert, it's a copy attack where you don't have to copy the energy requirement. So could
Oh,
be interesting, right? You don't have to run psychic energies in your supposed teased deck that we'll talk about here soon. A lot of
huh.
you probably already know what it is, but definitely definitely interesting. But I just don't know how many times uh,
When you'll be at
one
one.
thing yeah, when you'll be at 1 because 'cause we're in such a heavy 2 prize format,
We
could potentially happen.
We are. I will say, however, we have cards like Dusk Noir, and there's a not insignificant amount of evolution decks and decks that run Badu, where like
Mhm.
maybe your first knockout is some random single prizer, and all of a sudden you're on this like awkward, odd prize map. And so it's a nice like emergency cord that you can rip that basically is like, hey, you're not going to stall me out from winning this game with your 300 and some odd HP Pokemon. I'm taking it right now.
Mhm.
But moving on from the Sigilif, we have some more Lillie's Pokemon. We have a Lillie's Rabombi, 70 HP, stage 1. I will note these are very, very little Pokemon, 30 and 70 HP.
Yeah,
But
Rabombi and Cutiefly are historically, I feel like, very small.
yeah, which like I guess canonically makes sense, but then Dragapult just is like, dinner, yes please. But the ability Inviting Wing, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may have your opponent reveal their hand and put any number of basic Pokemon you find there onto their bench. So I don't know, kind of feels like what's that flute? The Pokemon, the flute card that we got, Pokemon Flute. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah, I thought you were gonna say captivating Pokepuff.
Oh no, no.
Yeah, the
Uh,
way back time machine over here.
It feels like it's just very similar to that card, except now I have to play
Mhm.
2 cards and wait a turn. Why would I do that? What
I mean, it's definitely interesting, especially if you're on a control aspect, right? But I feel like this format compared to other formats don't necessarily depend as much on support Pokemon like that. Like a lot of the
Yeah,
support Pokemon are ones that get utilization once they're on the field. So it's all about when they get on the field. So
yeah,
I don't know about it too much, but could be something if you're in your control deck mischievous ways that you can think about that card.
yep. I'm gonna real quick do this Mimikyu, and then we can move on. It's another starter deck Pokemon.
It's bad.
It's bad. Its first attack, you get to choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon and put 3 damage counters on each of them. Wow, 60 damage. And then the second attack is 120, and you confuse the opponent's active. Moving on, Jake. What's next for you?
There's a cool Grimmsnarl with a 1 energy psychic cost, and I'm just talking all about the stage 2s today. Shadowy Knot for 50 times damage does 50 damage for each colorless in your opponent's active Pokemon retreat cost. Could be cool if you have like kind of what Spadop's EX
Yep.
was, where it added a retreat cost right in there, and you've got a 1 prize option to be able to do that damage. But the stage 2, don't really see it happening, especially when, whatchamacallit, Latias EX
Yeah.
exists. Can't really get around that.
That's pretty annoying. And Latias only affects basics, but it does feel like, okay, now I have to go into a stage 2, and it's so reliant on what my opponent is doing that it's like, oy, oy, maybe not,
Mhm.
maybe not. Um, there's an Alcremie here from another starter deck that has the ability to heal 30 from one of your Pokemon, but otherwise it's a
That's
complete
it's
write-off.
it's so bad, oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Jake, I will let you take the next one. I know you are a big fan of this next card.
This is my guy, Mamoswine EX. Mamoswine EX, stage 2, 340 HP fighting type Pokemon with a 4 retreat cost. He's a big dude, I will say. Has the ability Mammoth Carry. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle your deck. So, very nice on the consistency of being able to evolve Pokemon with this deck. And then for fighting and fighting, Rumbling March 180 damage does 40 more damage for each stage 2 Pokemon on your bench. So similar to the Torterra that we had, I believe, that grass Torterra did more damage per stage 2 Pokemon. Now the what's his name? Mamoswine EX is going to be able to do that same exact thing, especially when you have an ability that searches for Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely helps you quite a bit in terms of that consistency. Um, it's a weird ability because I'm like, it is good, but it's also like worse Pidgeot. Like Pidgeot,
Yes.
it says go get anything, and this one says, go get a Pokemon.
Yeah,
Um,
just only a Pokemon though.
I think playing this with something like Pidgeot is probably maybe the way to go. Because look, it
Mhm.
fulfills a requirement of a stage 2. I think you could even play this in, I don't know how much space you have, so you probably actually can't play it in a deck that relies on Noctowl either, because that just you need all the cards to have stage 2s. But yeah, if you're looking to play this deck, I would recommend Mamoswine and Pidgeot. That way you can find your rare candies, skip some middle evolutions, just really try to get as many of those stage 2s out as quickly as possible.
I will say out of the new decks releasing in this set, this is one of the better ones, and Sean, you are right. Mamoswine and Pidgeot EX is a combo frequently used throughout the, city leagues, and guess what you also play in here?
As a stage 2?
Mhm.
Um is it Oh man, is it the Greninja EX?
No, you actually played the Luxray that cheats itself
Oh,
out if it's
yeah.
in your starting hand, right? Being able to put a stage 2 Pokemon on the field so quickly. You're also playing a 1/1/1 line of Garganical that allows you to accelerate basic fighting energies from your discard
Okay.
pile to your Pokemon and then heal your Pokemon. So you can heal a little bit of damage on that 340 HP beefy boy, but a real deck and a cool one, and one that I will probably play
Yeah.
because it's Mamoswine. How could you not like Mamoswine?
Moving on, let's see here. I mean, this Lycanroc might be interesting. It has an ability Entangling Spikes. When you play from your hand to involve one of your Pokemon, you attach up to 2 Spike Energy, which is a special energy we have not covered yet. So, TBD on how
Oh,
good that is. But you put it from your discard pile onto this Pokemon. So, whenever you evolve it, so long as you've found 2 of the Spike Energy and discarded them at some point, you basically evolve, throw them right back onto it, attach something from hand, and you're good to go. My guess is Spike Energy deals damage when that Pokemon is hit or knocked out, because the attack, it does 40 plus. It does 40 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active, which, now that I'm reading this, you have things like Monkey Dory in the format, right? Like, I don't know. This might be a way better than I was initially thinking, Jake.
yeah, from the trash bin to the meme folder is what you're saying.
Do you think? I
And
don't
then, yeah.
I'm trying to think 40 more
Oh,
for each damage counter, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, let's say we want to knock out a Dragapult. I don't know, bad example, but like, what do we got to do? We got 320 minus 40, 280. So 7 damage counters is all you need to knock out a
okay.
Dragapult.
Sure.
And what is, man, I want to know what Spike Energy does. Okay. This one is a TBD on if it's any good based on how good Spike Energy is. But I think you play the helmet. You know, the Rocky helmet that deals damage when
Yeah,
the
you could do
Pokemon.
Rocky Helmet.
There
Yeah.
you go. So
You probably
Spike,
just play a type of deck that is really good about stacking damage counters, but not KOing Pokemon. So, like
yeah,
you're saying, like Monkey Dory, Rocky Helmet, stuff like that.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe this deck is boo boo garbage, but like I don't know. Seems like it'd be interesting, and people love Lycanroc.
Yeah, Lycanroc is a cool Pokemon. But Clodsire is also a really cool Pokemon, in my opinion.
Damn,
It does have
you
a
about to do that to my boy Hop. Just skip
yeah, I
his
am.
Pokemon.
I am. Hops Anaconda,
It's fine. We can skip
yeah,
him.
whatever. It's garbage. Like most of these other cards. Has a Paldean Clodsire EX, stage 1, 280 HP dark type Pokemon. Has a dark colorless attack, poison ring for 60 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat, and then has a Giga Impact attack for dark colorless, 220 damage, and then can attack in the next turn.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing some sort of trap deck, right? We've talked about a couple different trap decks and a couple different trap ideas. This Clodsire is one of those ways. And also, you can do 60 damage on top of it. So it's going to effectively do 70 damage for every turn.
Yeah.
You have to have a pretty good trap deck, I feel like, to be able to do that.
I'll briefly mention Tyranitar because it does have a very annoying ability that while this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play item cards from their hand. Now, important to remember, it's only while it's in the active spot. So
Yeah, why would you
if they boss around this, that's not great.
just play Budu?
Yeah, that's
Just
why I'm
play
like,
Budu.
to be frank, yeah, Budu is better. I think if you're gonna do Tyranitar, you got to go full Tyranitar. Like you got to have like 4 lines. You know, just make it a full on item lock deck. No way around it. So,
Mm.
but yeah, Jake. Now let's get to the other Pokemon that I think was a big headliner when they first announced this set. What was that Pokemon? What was everybody oohing and awing over?
It is the 200 HP Dark type Stage 1 ends Zoroark EX. Has the trade ability. So Jake will be able to continuously do Trash 1, Draw 2 cards on abilities. Absolutely gorgeous. We love to see it. I love drawing cards. But also has the attack for Dark and Dark, 2 Dark energies. Night Joker, you choose one of your benched ends Pokemon attacks and use it as this attack. So all you need is the 2 dark energies. You don't have to copy the energy requirement on the Pokemon on the bench. So as I was talking about with
Mm,
the End Sigilif, right? The End Sigilif is on the bench. Usually it is a psychic colorless attack. But if you're not running psychic energies because you're running an End Zoroark deck, right? You're going to be able to just do that attack for dark and dark. Really, really nice if you're not able to take knockouts, right? Because the Darmanitan, ends Darmanitan, is another Pokemon you're really copying right there. Being
mhm.
able to do 90-90 somewhere on the field or that 30 times your amount of energies in the opponent's discard pile. I will say the attack cap on this Pokemon, I'm trying to scroll down, is about 170 approximately in there. So this deck is a little bit slower in a sense, like kind of what Righteous Beating was, I feel like,
Yeah.
right? Righteous Beating didn't necessarily always one-hit KO opposing Pokemon, but it did a lot of great setup damage and did a lot of great drawing in terms of its abilities. So um, you've got a couple different options with this deck, and this box that has been revealed, and I would say is it's like the second best new deck to come out, or no, probably the number one best deck. 'Cause for Alligator was from Temporal Forces, I
You
believe.
think
So
I don't know.
yeah.
I think that the hops cards are also very strong, at least in Japanese lists. But
No, no.
no,
But
no.
anyways, you're allowed to have an opinion, I guess.
Everyone's allowed to have an opinion, but yeah, I will say this is a cool card. I think the fact that it's 280 HP is like necessary to your point of it being
Mhm.
kind of slow. Your damage output is a little limited, but yeah, 90-90 in terms of especially now that we don't have Manaphy, nothing to slouch at. That is like cool. Let me knock out those 2 drag cloaks. You know, I'm boss one up, I'll knock one out on the bench. say goodbye to ever getting a Dragapult. That would be
Yeah.
devastating.
There's a lot of cool synergies with this deck and a lot of interesting plays that you can make. Really think this one is fun and going to make some noise, especially at your local scene. Zoroark being a very, very popular Pokemon.
Yeah. Moving down the list here, going into the metal Pokemon, the ends metal Pokemon. I guess, look, I'll briefly mention the ends Clink Clang. It has a 3 energy attack, but as we've seen, you're not going to have to need the 3 energy. But it is a stage 2, so like I don't know if it's worth it. You do 120 times, you flip 3 coins and 120 for each heads. I don't think it's worth even running this in the deck, but in theory, you could hit 360 with an ends Zoroark.
Yeah, if you wanted to just hit big numbers all the time, then go for
Yeah.
Ends Cling Clang.
Yeah, this is that's everyone is allowed to do what they want. That's their opinions,
Yeah,
man.
that's the beauty of the Pokemon trading card game.
But the actual, like, there's a metal Pokemon here that I actually think is pretty good. There's a Magearna that has the ability Auto Heal. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, whenever you attach an energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, heal 90 from that Pokemon. Now, I'm bringing this up because I don't know who is going to absolutely break this card, but Jake, I genuinely think somebody is going to break this card.
I was gonna say because this is a ability that can constantly be used. It's not an
Yep.
ability that's just like a once per turn
Nope.
kind of use. So I will say those energy or those decks, similar to what I was saying, like Wailord. I'm gonna take
Right?
this in my Wailord deck. Wailord Baxcalibur. Oh man,
Yeah, Wailord, Baxcalibur, and you just throw a Hero's Cape on it, and you
yeah,
only ever have that's and then what you do every turn, you're like, oh, you did a bunch of damage. Let me throw some more energy on there. Oh, you did a bunch of damage. Let me throw some more energy on there, and you're just so I don't know. Maybe the translation is a little off. I don't think so. But the nice thing about this too, I will say, 1 energy retreat, so it is the perfect pivot Pokemon. So if you need to switch retreat, or if you have switch Latias in play, yeah, I don't know. I read this one and I had to like double read it, Jake, because I was just like, this feels wrong. Like it feels like this can't be right, right?
if it's right though, could be cool in some decks. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say.
But yeah, moving on. I don't think Hops Corviknight is anything to
So
write home
let's
about.
talk about Hopsization EX, the
Yeah.
all-star of Sean's supposed best deck coming out of this set, which I think he's wrong. But anyways, Hopsization EX is a good Pokemon. Don't get that wrong in there. 230 HP metal type EX Pokemon. Has a 1 energy attack, colorless close cleave, 30 damage. Also does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So could be really nice in setting up some damage. And then has a metal colorless that's 4 energies for 240 during your next turn. The Pokemon can't use Brave Slash, so very reminiscent of Zacian V.
Yep. And I will say the decks I've seen online, the Japanese list, they will play it both ways. They will play this with no metal energy, and they will play this with metal energy, and like maybe Archaladon, in the list. But
Mhm.
it seems to me, I haven't played it, but that first attack for 1 energy being able to do 30/30, and there are ways in this deck of increasing the amount of damage that this does to the active.
Mhm.
So I don't know what it caps out at. It's probably like 90 or 120. But like, look, we have Iron Bundle. People are running Badu. You can like Iron Bundle some other single prize or up and knock that and the Badu out. Take 2 prizes all with this Zacian. I don't know. Like it'll depend on what the rest of the format looks like, but there's something here.
Taking a peek, I think your cap is 90.
Okay.
90/30 on an opponent's Pokemon, but can actually do that attack for free.
Oh,
with a specific tool card that we'll talk about here soon. So maybe I wasn't giving it enough credit. Who knows? You'll have to stay in and listen to the entire Metapod cast. But looking at Salamence EX, this Dragon type stage 2 Pokemon, 320 HP, has 2 attacks. Fire, colorless, wide blast. This attack does 50 damage to each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So really interesting spread idea, especially if maybe Reggie Drago wants to come back. I don't know. But for fire, water, colorless, dragon impact, 300 damage. And you discard 2 energy from this Pokemon. So has a good variety of spread versus just whack-a-mole all at once. I think this probably fits best in a Dragapult deck.
perhaps. Yeah, like the energy
Or I'm
cost
sorry,
is
not Dragapult.
oh,
Not
Charizard?
Dragapult, Reggie Drago. Reggie Drago.
Oh. Well, but Reggie
Yeah.
Drago rotates.
Oh my gosh, it does. Never mind. Don't play it in
Yeah.
Reggie Drago. Oh, no, this card sucks.
I mean, look, the second attack I actually don't really care that much about, and I'm gonna eat my
Mhm.
words for saying that in 6 months, I'm sure. But the first attack, I really love big spread decks. I think that they are not widely printed, and 50 damage to everything is not a joke. Like that's serious damage.
Mhm.
So I think a deck like this, if you can find a way to get it powered up relatively quickly before your opponent has time to really, I don't know, evolve all of their stuff. I think what really kills the deck right now is the Lillie's Clefairy, because you can't be giving up that many prizes with this deck, I don't think. And
Yeah.
outside of that, the future inclusion of Shaman, if that card gets played, I think it also just destroys this deck. But I don't know. It might be an interesting deck to try out if you want to try something a little outside the meta.
I mean, people love dragon type Pokemon, and
Yeah.
especially one like Salamence, right? Beloved. But there's one more dragon type Pokemon we're going to talk about before I come to the realization that your Hopzacian EX can do 120 damage for that first attack.
Okay.
But first, we're going to talk about Ends Reshiram, right? This is the final Ends Pokemon that's kind of in that Ends Zoroark box that I was talking about. One of the attacks that you can copy basic 130 HP dragon type has 2 different attacks, one for fire and lightning, powerful rage, 20 times the amount of damage counter on this Pokemon. So, if your opponent's kind of doing a spread deck, they don't take one-hit knockouts and stuff, you can deal a lot of damage with a powerful rage comeback attack on your Zoroark EX. But if you just want to do a straight 170, you can copy the fire, lightning, colorless attack, virtuous flame. And again, and
Hmm.
Zoroark doesn't have to copy the energies, just does the attack stuff. It only needs those 2 dark. So a 4 energy attack really doesn't matter too much to the end Zoroark.
This is interesting. Like now that I'm recognizing its combination with Zoroark and the fact that the
Mhm.
Zoroark is 280 HP, um, effectively, if you do a decent amount of damage to the Zoroark but don't kill it, that Zoroark will knock out anything on the field.
Yeah, I mean, if you do 140 damage, that's 280
Yeah.
coming back at you with a powerful rage, right? So if you do anything less than half, it's probably knocking you out, no matter what it is, right? A Dragapult hitting into it,
Yeah.
that's
It's
400 damage coming back at you, buddy.
so I think this is an interesting card. I don't know if you're playing Ends package. I think you probably maybe have like 2 of these because we're losing the Hisuian Heavy Ball.
Mhm.
Um, but like it seems like a fun card to like, especially early on in the format at locals. Like people won't know all the different cards that you could attack with. I think that's going to be the most powerful thing about the Zoroark for the first month is people at locals just not recognizing all of your options. So
I will say the list that I've seen at least do run 2 of these, but
yeah, I mean it makes sense. Once you lose the heavy ball, you're kind of like, well, I guess I'll run
if it's
two.
there, it's there, but
Right.
Hops Snorlax right here, Sean. I missed this when I was talking about Zacian EX's damage output potential. This makes it do 120 damage for that first attack. Has the big belly ability, this basic 108 150 HP Hops Snorlax. The attacks of your Hops Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon, but it does not stack. Thank goodness it doesn't stack because if that Zacian V
Oh my
had
gosh.
4 Hop Snorlaxes on the bench, that's a lot of damage. I can't count that high.
Yeah, that would be gross. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, this makes sense. And you think about the Snorlax as well. Like you said, there are other cards that can reduce the amount of energy you need to attack. This is not. This is also like a halfway decent attacker on its own as a single prizer. So I don't know. It's some interesting stuff here. I like this. The attack, it's 3 colorless. You do 140, but technically it's 170 if you're
Mhm.
including the 30 extra. And you do 80 to yourself, but that doesn't matter. Your guy's getting knocked out at the end of this turn anyways.
It's going to be all for good.
Uh, I actually did want to mention this Dunsparce EX real quick, Jake.
I
Um,
love to Dunsparce.
because I do think people are planning to play the Dunsparce package to draw cards now that Bibarel rotates. Like, I know I've seen some lists, maybe it's Goldengo or others, but this Dunsparce EX, which can evolve from your, Dunsparce. First attack, Adversity Tail. It does 60 times, 60 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX. Don't worry about the second attack. I'm just going to say that out loud. But for 1 energy, colorless, imagine you're playing against Miraidon. And, you are like, I have no way of getting back all that energy from my discard. But I do have this Dunsparce EX. Boom, 1 energy. I'm just going to knock out whatever's in front of me, most likely. If there are 5, you do 300. 6, you do 360 damage. Like, I don't know. This reminds me of the tag team, like the Clefairy, the Igglybuff, Jiggly, that like little tag team with
Yeah,
like all the
yeah, yeah.
babies.
I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
It reminds me of
I will
that.
say if you look at limitlesstcg.com, which is a great source of information if you do not know what that is, tournament results, deck lists, things like that. We bring it up a lot on this podcast. We don't always shout them out though, but that's usually who we go to for deck lists and stuff like that. If you look at the City League results happening in Japan, you can see right away on the first or the last couple notions made on March 9th, tournaments were won by the Dunsparce, packaged alongside different decks. Archaladon being one of them. This Archaladon EX utilizing that Dunsparce draw package, like you were talking about, played a one of Dunsparce EX. You have a Goldango, right? That also won. That Goldango also using Dunsparce to draw cards. And guess what? It also played a one of the EX. So you're right on the money on that read of like this could be a cool like one of surprise tech, if you're running that package already.
Yeah. And it really makes your opponent have to like sit back and be like, oh, dang, they're running the Dunsparce package. I can't overbench EXs.
Mhm.
And like, that might mean they don't put down that Pheasantipity. That might mean they don't put down that Mew or Squawkabilly, right? And like, hey, that's better for us. Um, but yeah, moving on from that, Jake, is there anything else in the colorless group that is turning your head?
Yeah, maybe, but first I want to give a quick shout out to Skowovid, another Sao Sao illustration for my Sao Sao specific binder. Love that guy. But Hops Dubwool, I guess we should give a little bit of a shout out to because it does have a really interesting ability. Stage 1, 120 HP, colorless type Pokemon has the ability Challenge Horn. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. So this is a boss's orders type ability right on this Hops Dubwool. So think about if you're utilizing the Zacian, right? Going to be doing that free attack. We'll talk about how you could do it for free here soon, but doing that free attack on your opponent's Pokemon, and you get to choose which Pokemon that is. And there's another colorless Pokemon in here that we can talk about. Holy smokes, another Hops Pokemon.
Yeah, see, the hops package is dope. I think
Okay, hold your horses there. It's a deck. It's a deck of 60 cards that
that's
run
fair.
together.
That's fair. What is this Cramorant? We're talking about the Cramorant, the silliest bird
Mhm.
in Pokemon. 110 HP for this basic. For 1 colorless energy, you do 120. If your opponent doesn't have exactly 3 or 4 prize cards remaining, this attack does nothing. So, you know, the perfect little mid-game poke from a Cramorant.
It's definitely a specific kind of card, right? Because like it says on there, if they don't have 3 or 4, you can do that attack for 120 damage. So it's a really, really good early game attacker, right? To be able maybe going second
Well, no,
on your
no,
first
Jake.
turn.
It is if they don't have
Oh, I'm
exactly 3
sorry.
or
Yes,
4.
okay.
Oh, yes,
There
yes.
it's a yeah, okay. Now I understand it a little bit more. So you have to use it in the mid-range technically in there or the midpoint of the game,
Yeah, yeah, about
as
halfway
you can
through.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Reading works, children. Learn how to read.
It doesn't help when they're
But
using, like, double negatives, doesn't and nothing.
yeah, exactly. Some of us aren't that smart, but the final colorless Pokemon, another quick South shout out for the Squawkabilly. Don't worry about its attack, but it's a cute card. I love Squawkabilly in here. But now we go into the trainers.
Yeah. We're gonna skip over any trainer that is being reprinted. We have several, but the first one that is new is Billy and Onair. This is a gym promo series. Draw 2, then if you have 10 or more cards in your hand, draw 2 more. Kind of a wild card that gives you bonuses if you already have a full grip, but like
Yeah.
cool, I guess. Like I don't know, like in theory, a supporter that lets you just draw 4 situationally is good, but the situations you'll be in are going to be fewer uh, than you would like, and so otherwise not particularly useful.
This could be cool in like the Dunsparce packages, right? That
Mm,
allow you to draw cards or any sort of package that is like draw specific amount of cards, right? Right. Not until you have X amount of cards in your hand,
mm.
but just draw cards in general. Maybe if you're talking about like a
Goldengo.
trade. Yeah, Goldengo might be nice, being able to use that ability to draw cards. Trade Zoroark, right? It is a +1 on that trade could be useful in there. And we have a bunch of other cards that allow you to get multiple things, right? You talk about Earth and Vessel, right? For one card, well, you do have to trash another card. So I guess it's only a net zero. So, anyways, there are situations where you might want to play this if you're an extremely aggressive draw deck, but it's probably going to fall by the wayside.
But Jake, what is the next card on your list? We have like a bunch of versions of Black Belt's practice. I'm just going to mention that. It's kind of crazy.
Black Belt Practice has like 5 different arts in this. Really interesting. I see this as a tech card for a lot of different decks. During this turn, attacks used by your Pokemon do 40 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon EX. So if you're facing an EX deck, right, to get that extra damage to hit the threshold, Black Belt Practice is so good to be able to hit that extra number because 40 damage is a lot, I will say. It's nothing to scoff at, especially because it's your supporter for turn.
Yeah, yeah. The next new supporter on here is Brock Scouting. It's another one of those cards that lets you choose 2 things. Either search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand, and shuffle, or search your deck for an evolution and put it into your hand. Uh, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. Yeah, I think this one's a mixed bag. I think that I would need to play with this card to get a feel for it. What do you think, Jake?
No, I think you'd rather just play like Buddy Buddy Poffins and stuff
That's fair.
in the deck. And if you really want evolutions, I mean, I guess it does have the flexibility, but like if you're playing evolutions, right, just do what like Lugia does and just play Jock or something. You get
The
an extra evolution.
the only way I could see this being really useful, if you are playing a deck that can't use Buddy Buddy Poffin well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Sure.
like, and then you're like, okay, cool. I can early game go get 2 of my like basics that are a little bit bigger. So it's like a bit of a nest ball backup. And then, if you're doing a deck that has big basics but also evolves in some form, like Darmanitan is a good example, right? 80 HP, a little awkward. So I don't think you would play this in an ends deck, but I'm just as an example. But
I
yeah,
think you also, wouldn't play this in a hops deck But
No.
don't worry, I'm gonna go a little bit out of order here, Sean. Don't
Mhm.
worry if you don't wanna use Brock in your Hops deck, just play Hops Bag instead. It's an item card that allows you to search your deck for up to 2 basic Hops Pokemon, put them on your bench, then shuffle. Can't believe they gave Battle VIP Pass to Hop. He
Bro,
needs it.
this is better. You can use it on any turn.
Yeah, you can use it anytime.
This is crazy. It's great though. I mean, look, if you're talking about like a deck that's going to be wildly consistent, imagine being like, yeah, I play the hops package, so I'm going to play hops bag, and I have nest balls, and I'll probably run Squawkabilly, and I might even run Terapagos. Who cares, right? Like it's all colorless. It doesn't matter. I'm going to play Noctowl. Gosh, that deck has the potential to be crazy.
It can definitely do things. We'll see how it does in the results, but
I will.
anyways, exchange oh, sorry,
Oh
do you
yeah,
wanna
no,
say something?
I was going to say exchange ticket, but yes, go for it.
Exchange Ticket is an item card as well that you can play that I think does have actually some niche play in Japan. After counting your prize cards, shuffle them, put them at the bottom of your deck, then take that many cards from the top of your deck and put them as face down as your prize cards. You talked about Hisui and Heavy Ball not being in format. Well, if you know that there's a Pokemon or a specific card prize that you absolutely need for a matchup, just go ahead and use Exchange Ticket to switch those prizes, and hopefully you don't prize the other cards that you absolutely need.
Well, I will say this. We have that I said it like I think 3 months ago maybe. I think it is a Jigglypuff or a Chansey. It's a Chansey, I think. That when you take it
Mhm.
from your prizes, if you have space on your bench, you can put it on your bench and flip a coin. When you do, if you hit a heads, you can take another prize card. So there are also ways to stack the top of your deck, Jake, with Academy at Night and Cypher Maniac's, pull. And so I'm like, hmm. There could there's the normal way to use this, which is as a replacement for Hisui and Heavy Ball. And then there's the stupid way to use this, which is what I just described.
There's the way that is fun, right,
Yes.
in the Pokemon trading card game. That's the one that we want to use.
Yup, yup. But moving on to the next card, those of you who've been playing for a few years will probably recognize the headband art, but will say, well, this one's a little different. This is Hop's Choice Band. So Choice Band makes its triumphant return, but now only for Hops Pokemon. This tool card it says, when the Hops Pokemon this card is attached to uses an attack, that attack costs 1 colorless less. So that was what Jake was referencing when he was talking about you can use it for free. And it does 30 more damage. So it's like Choice Band meets always on counter gain. Kinda.
Maybe not counter gain, but something.
Well, it's
Something
always
that makes
on.
energies go away. Oh,
Yeah.
always on. Okay, I see
Yeah.
what you mean. I thought you meant like always attached. I was like, well,
Oh no, no.
you
Like
know, when you're
it
ahead in
always works.
prizes.
It's a
Yeah.
counter gain that always works. So
Mhm.
yeah, this card is kind of dope, honestly. Like, if you're gonna run the hops package, if that's your jam, you definitely want, several of these in the deck. So this will be cool. Jake, what is the next card on the list?
The next card on the list, fine. Iris's Finding Spirit. Discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hand. So the one thing that is kind of nice about this is if you have like let's say 2 cards in
Hmm.
hand, right? And you play this card. You play this card, you only have 1 card in hand. If you discard that 1 card, you automatically just draw 6 cards right then and there, right? It's a great card to play if you have 2 cards left in hand before you play it. But might be kinda nice as well. I feel really weird because 'cause you're gonna be in some situations like you were talking about earlier with some other stuff where, like, you just have a lot of cards that you don't wanna discard or that you can't discard, and so you're just like, "Ah, yes, play Iris's Fighting Spirit, discard this 1 card, and draw 1 card."
Yeah, I feel like cards like this are gonna go really well in decks that can accelerate energy from hand because I always think of decks like that and I'm like, that's your limiting factor. Is if you can't get the energy from your hand onto the battlefield to like make space, then you're going to end up with you will end up with hands of 4 or 5 energy and this supporter, and you're going to be like, oh, this is gross. I'm going to discard draw 2. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
So
It's fine, I guess.
we do have a new stadium. The stadium is called, I think right now at least it's called Lavincia. Once during each player's turn, they may put up to 2 basic lightning energy cards from their discard pile into their hand. Very specific, clearly for Iono.
Yeah, chain that Kilowattrel multiple turns, just draw, 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 draw.
Yeah. But I will also say, Jake, is this a deck? Is this a stadium that you would consider running in Goldengo?
Probably not Goldango. I think Pokestop is just well, Pokestop rotates.
Yes.
Gosh, man, rotation is so difficult for me. Um, I don't know if you run it in Goldango. You'd have to run like a heavier package of lightning, but people are already running a heavier package because of Monkey Dory, right? Like a
Hmm.
one of Monkey Dory, so they're playing multiple dark energies. So I don't know how many multiple energies you can play at once because you're
That's
already
fair.
multiplying up 2 different ones in metal and dark. So now you'd have to do it again with lightning? I don't know. Maybe like Maridon this could be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I was just thinking out loud. I'm like, because I did see, Jake, one of the top 8 matches. The person playing Goldengo lost because they got item locked out of getting any energy back out of their discard.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, that was the top 16, like right before we started recording. Yeah,
Yeah. And
I
I'm like,
saw that.
oh, if only they had Lavincia, they would
Oh,
have
if
won.
only. Yeah, they would have found the energies, but you know what? That's what happens sometimes.
It's a very
Lil
specific. Yeah.
Yeah, Lily's Pearl is a tool card. If the Lily's Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, your opponent takes 1 fewer prize. So nobody's playing Lost Vacuum. Nobody's playing tool removal. Maybe I provide some sort of stall type deck, or I make my Lily's Clefairy just 1 prize.
That's pretty good. I'm trying to think because we do have Jamming Tower. I think we lose Lost Vacuum, but we keep Jamming Tower.
Hmm.
So it's an interesting tool that I think it's going to be most useful where in a format where people aren't expecting it and thus are not playing as much Jamming Tower. So, yeah.
You have to play some sort of like Lily's deck though to be able to use this because I don't see this
Yeah.
being run in like Gardevoir in a sense, right? Because like you just have like 1 Lily's
Yeah.
Clefairy and that's it. It's not like you're running a whole deck of them. So why would you run more?
I mean, you might run one cuz people are running one Bravery Charm now for their,
Yeah,
Drifloon.
but Bravery Charm is so much better.
I mean, yes, I agree. I agree.
Bravery Charm is I hit my Drifloon, I hit you for 400.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, but I don't know. Yeah, I think this is an interesting card. You may or may not see this card in your locals if people are running Lily's Clefairy. Um, but the next card here is another stadium. We have Ends Castle. Each Ends Pokemon in play has no retreat cost. So, you know, what are retreat costs, Jake? Between Latias and Ends Castle, like, why don't we could remove that whole text box from the Pokemon now and be done with it. We have
This
Beach Court.
is
This
actually
is
a card that is yeah, this is a card that's definitely played in the End Zoroark deck, right? Being able to retreat maybe a Darmanitan or a Darumaka that you maybe started, or maybe your
mm,
Reshiram, right? Helps you
yeah.
free retreat into your Zoroarks, or even switch into Zoroarks if you don't want to give up any prizes and they're doing like multiple hits for knockouts. Can be really, really nice. And works also really well with Ends PP up as well. Still wondering, a lot of people are
I think that's the
theorizing that they're
name. I think that's
yeah.
the name.
But this is the item called PP Up, and it is specifically for Ends Pokemon. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Ends Pokemon. It's incredibly unfortunate. Uh, we'll see. A lot of people, especially like commentators, are theorizing that Pokemon is going to release this with a different name.
Hmm.
But I don't know what name you would change it to because the item on there is very obviously PP up, maybe like ends medicine. I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyways, this is a really good card because it allows you to be able to, just like Dark Patch or something like that, right? Accelerate that energy onto one of your ends Pokemon on the bench. And especially with Zoroark, all you need is just an attachment from hand to be able to go ahead and attack for your 2 energy attacks. So that kind of, I think that fulfills the entire ends package. You don't have to think about ends Pokemon anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great card for N decks. I think if you're planning to run the ends package, just pick up 4 of these, pull them,
Mhm.
trade for them. Yeah, you're gonna like it. Um, Another stadium here on this list is Postwick. The attacks of Hop's Pokemon do 30 more damage to the opponent's active. So if we've been counting, we do 30 more damage from Postwick, we do 30 more damage from Snorlax, and we do 30 more damage from Choice Band, and then we do 30 base. That puts us at 120 damage.
True, I got the math right.
And if we want to play Black Belt, we can go to
Oh, yeah,
160. Let's knock out a
160
Squawkabilly. You know,
for free. No
turn one
energies.
going second.
Turn 1 going
NBD.
second, no energies. Yeah.
Cool. Love that. And then you do 30 to the bench. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I feel like that's a really tough combo to get off.
I agree. I think I fully agree. I think 160 is a bit,
You
out of
you
pocket.
have to play Secret Box, right? Like, you have to
Ye-
have Secret Box in your starting hand.
yeah, I think you're right.
Like,
That would be
just
crazy.
oh, no, Pokemon doesn't have an optional mulligan. I was gonna say just mulligan for it, but no. Sometimes you're forced to stick with your Lumineon V,
We are getting even more professors' researches. We've got Birch and Juniper and Kukui and Magnolia again. Sada
which is
as a research, which is kind of weird.
it's insane. It's insane because this is a reprint of Sada, this is a reprint of Magnolia, this is a reprint of Juniper, and so 3 of the 5 are old ones, and we still, as the Metapod Discord server, official Discord server that you can join in the link in the description below, has rioted in our, main channel of there that there's no Elm in
Yeah.
here, so Justice for Elm official campaign coming in.
Uh, there's just a few cards left here, Jake. Do you want to go over
Mhm.
the last supporter in the set?
Rufian. Rufian, he's just a chill guy. But anyways, he's a supporter that says discard a Pokemon tool and a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. So definitely for you control fans out there, I think that's pretty much it. He is
Yeah.
probably a one of in the decks. And that's it.
Man, this is one card where I'm like, it is definitely a funky card because it says special energy. If it said energy, discard a tool and an energy, I understand why Pokemon didn't do that. But I think it would have more use if it did those because I think we are in a very low special energy format right now.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Um,
Think
the
about
only
playing this on a Dragapult, though. If they had special energies and maybe it was just a basic energy, that would destroy Dragapult.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah.
so many last tangent before we go on to the final 2 cards of this set. There's so many supporters in this set that make me just wish that we had Lieutenant Surge's strategy back.
Bro, that card got
You
banned
know?
for a reason, Jake. That
There's
card
so
was
many
filthy.
there's so many cards where I'm like, "Man, this would be good if I could play another supporter."
Can you imagine Lieutenant Surge's strategy in a format that also has Dusknoir? That's
Wait, why?
gross. Because you have to
With
be
Dust
down on
Alright, yeah, I guess
prizes.
you could yeah, you force yourself to go down on prizes, and then you can play 2 supporters. Yeah, I see, I
That's
see.
crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
look,
I'm
I
glad
want
it
to
doesn't
live the
exist,
dream,
but
but
left out potential. Anyway, Super Potion, skip it, 60 damage shield, discard an energy from the Pokemon.
well,
Sucks.
I mean, I will say this. I don't know if it's great, but healing 60, how much damage does Dragapult do to bench?
60,
And you don't
sure.
and unlike there have been other tools that say in order to use this, you have to discard an energy. This does not say that. It just says if there is an energy, discard it.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't know. I'm not saying it's good, but I do think free heal 60 might be a thing. Maybe. Um the last card though is that spike energy we talked about so long ago with Lycanroc. It provides colorless energy, and as I suspected, if the card that it's attached to is in the active spot and is damaged, doesn't have to be knocked out, just damaged, you put 2 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. So think about this with the Rocky Helmet. You get hit, and that's instantly 5 damage. And the attack, the actual ability puts 2 spike energy onto the Pokemon when it evolves. So if you have the Rocky Helmet plus 2 spike energy, that's 7 damage counters, which, as I was saying earlier, is the exact math to knock out a 320 HP Pokemon, which
Mhm.
is Dragapult. So I don't know if Lycanroc is great. I think you would need to play it with the A spec, the blender that puts things into your discard. So that way you can get the spike energies into your discard immediately. But I don't know. That could also be a fun, weird, like single prize deck to look out for.
Lugia fans weep in sorrow that they can't use this card. You know,
Dang.
I feel like they would they play this card? I feel like they could play this card.
I mean,
I
I don't see
mean,
why they wouldn't, right? Like,
it's not bad.
no, it's not bad. It's fine.
I I don't know if it's better than Mist Energy or Gift Energy or uh what's a double turbo? It's definitely not better than double turbo, but
No.
there's some interesting uses.
Yeah. But Jake, that is the set review. That's Journey Together. Quick little like what's the word I'm looking for? Like temperature. What's the temperature check on Journey Together? How are you
Temperature
feeling about
check?
the set?
Temperature check, I don't I this is one of the first sets that I can think of, and I talked about this recently, where I don't think anything's like inherently broken. You know, like
Mm.
a full main set. Nothing's broken. And Zoroark, I think, is really cool. It's not broken. Hop's deck is fine. It's not broken, right? It's really interesting because Dragapult really takes the limelight at this point, and so does old cards that come into the fray. I mean, for Alligator won the Champions League. Melodic EX was huge. Just wall decks were huge, right? Techs for walls, it was absolutely insane. So I think it'll be really curious as a set. It does do some stuff, but it does an appropriate amount of stuff that I feel like, especially with more trainers Pokemon, depending if they print more like Ends Pokemon or Iono's Pokemon or whatever, could provide more value in the future.
Yeah, I agree that it really is going to be a weird balance of like if this is all we get for each of those individual trainers, I personally think that none of them are strong enough. Like ends, I think Hops is fine, but I think Hops is like I think it may be good in certain metas and bad in others, to be honest. But
Mhm.
ends has the potential to be like really good, but I don't know for sure. Outside of that though, yeah, it does kind of feel like there's like little bits and pieces that are like, okay. And I will also say that the trainers in this set are particularly like not bad, but like I don't see any trainers in this set that I'm immediately like, everyone needs to get a playset of XYZ. They're like
Yeah.
really specific cards for those trainers Pokemon, or they're like, generically useful supporters as like one or two of. So I'll be interested to see how people feel about this set long term. Cause like it's cool that we're getting owners Pokemon, but it may end up being that in order to keep it not overpowered, they maybe powered it down a little too much. I don't know. It's like a weird one. Like I'm not sure because like we're seeing from all of the lists in Japan, like nothing. There's no like deck from this set that is particularly like crazy.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's just other decks are enhanced like Dragapult and Archaludon,
yeah.
stuff like that.
So but yeah, those are that's the Metapod take. That's the Metapod set review.
Mhm.
Um, Details of the pre-release will be in the Discord. Also, just leave a comment on Spotify or on YouTube what you think the pre-release promos are before they actually announce them.
Yeah, don't cheat.
Unless they announce them before the podcast comes out, in which case leave a comment telling people what they were. I don't know.
I will also say, this has nothing to do with well, I guess it has something to do with Pokemon. The, One Piece trading card game. I don't know if you saw this on, like, Threads or something, Sean. The One Piece trading card game announced that they are going to be doing simultaneous
Release.
worldwide releases.
Word.
So another Bandai card game, Bandai has done it for Digimon. I think Digimon does simultaneous worldwide. Gundam trading card game is starting out with simultaneous worldwide release. I think Yu-Gi-Oh does it. I think some people were telling me Yu-Gi-Oh does it. Can't confirm or deny.
Mm,
That's just word of mouth, what I've been told. And now One Piece is going to, and I don't think Magic the Gathering is popular in Japan, but I think it's also either worldwide or the West gets it first. So
yeah.
Pokemon, the your players have been wanting worldwide release, simultaneous worldwide releases, and other people are doing it. I don't know.
Yeah. Look,
Come on.
just hit up Twanley to help you do all the translations.
Yeah.
We'll make it work, you know?
It's
Then
gonna
the
be
Japanese
it's gonna
players can
be
look at our list.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting, especially in One Piece, but again, hopefully Pokemon eventually gets to that point. I would hope that Pokemon does, although it's not like a make or break deal for me. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's going to be the Metapod podcast. Thank you so much for listening as we revolve around the evolving meta. New set coming out. Show us your pre-release polls in the Discord server. We'd love to see them, and we'll see you later.